and welcome to another installment of our co-reading experience with the Red Black Girl of Sisters of the Yam by Bell Hooks. So I'm Ngozi. I'm Ngozi. Hi, hi. I think we just went live, and I said this whole Dumelang thing before it went live. So Dumelang Hape. We're doing the 11th chapter of Sisters of the Yam. I'm Ngozi in Gaborone, and we've got Dumelo of A Red Black Girl joining us from Pretoria on video chat.
Yay! Hi. I'm just trying to mute my computer. I don't know what's happening. Something is not happening. But good morning.
That's a great reminder because I just also now muted all the various technological things. So yeah, today we are reviewing, or rather going to discuss the joy of reconciliation. And so we were just checking in with Dumelo this morning. And I think we both had quite different experiences of this chapter. Where I was slightly traumatized. No, traumatized is too dramatic. It did give me like reason to pause. But I think Dumelo had a different experience of the chapter being more light and enjoyable, I suppose. I don't know if you'd like to say hey and come in.
Yes. I thought, I don't know. I think we've come back from like 4 chapters that were really like heavy and really long, and this one was like nice, short. I felt like it was to the point. We just went in. She just went in and talked about what needed to be talked about and was done. I understand that it can be like a heavy chapter, right? So I totally understand what you're talking about, because forgiveness is like, ooh, you know. But I found it to be like, oh yeah, it's that thing. But I don't know. I want to share something, but I don't know if it's like the right time.
Oh, okay.
To share.
Okay.
Should I?
Please.
Don't you have like any? Okay. So, and as I was reading the chapter, I was like, oh man, this is where. I was just thinking this would be like a nice discussion point to start off the chapter. So as a sister, right? And I don't wanna sound offensive or be dismissive and stuff, but as a sister, the inbox on social media can be such a tricky place, right? And I try to like steer away from my inbox, but sometimes you just, we're all online now. So like last night I'm online and then I get a text, and it's an appreciation text from another sister, a sister I've never met. And then I'm just like, hey, thank you, right? And then she's like, can I say something? Can I tell you something, right? So already I'm just like, it's that whole, do I want myself to this? Because I don't know what it is. I don't know the sister. I've never met her. She's not my friend on Facebook. But she follows me, right? So I was just like, okay, cool, fine. Let me create that space, right? Let me be that community.
Yes.
But also, I'm also like, not for everybody. So, right? But then it turns out that opening up is it's like a relevant space, right? Because she comes in and she says, I think I don't know, but I'm really struggling because I think I'm losing myself, right? Hey, Dudu. And then I'm like, okay, what's up? And then she's just like, so she's a new mom. She has a 9-month-old baby, and then she's like, she has a baby with like a guy that she works with, right? And so she actually, what she said is, I think I am living a lie, right? And then I was just like, that's where I was just like, oh my god, sisters, what is wrong?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, because that's such a. I mean, it goes back to yesterday's conversation that you need to, the realization that something is wrong is like the first step, right?
Yes.
Then she said something's wrong, and then I need to. Then she said, I had this baby with this guy, but then I don't think he cares for us, right? Because he's been here to see the child like twice, and So the important part here is that she says, so I'm living this lie because everyone, my family, my friends, what they know is that this guy is like a loving dad and everything, and then he comes around and he sees the child and he buys everything for the child, but actually I'm covering up for him and I do everything, even though I say to everybody else that he does everything.
Whoa.
Yes, so that was like a bit, it was like, oh, shoot, damn it. It's like heavy. I can imagine how heavy something like that is to carry, right? For someone. And I was just like, yeah, and then I needed to obviously come in, and I was also on that. I don't want to give advice. But it took me back to how important it is to forgive ourselves, because for her to be able to tell everybody the truth, she needs to first, forgive herself for all the lies she told herself and told everybody, and then the whole life of a lie that she's lived to this point. And then, in forgiving herself, then also forgive this guy. So, I mean, in the beginning of this chapter, the Belle starts with how women get to be bitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that whole bitter, I mean, we know, I always say to people that are like, call people their baby daddies and their baby mamas when things are not right, that like, bruh, you used to be like in a relationship with this person, you used to love this person. You can't, I don't like the term baby daddy and baby mommy.
Me neither.
Yeah, you can just be them by their name, because it's their name, and like, why are you? So anyway, yeah, coming back to that, yeah, just I don't want to like off the subject, but that forgiveness, and I think to be able to forgive other people, we need to forgive ourselves, right? First.
And I really love again how it comes back to like the idea of self-forgiveness. And again, like you said it as well, like the first thing that one must be able to do is to first be honest and open and be like, and look at the situation and look at oneself and look within one's heart and be like, this is actually what's going on. And then, the process of forgiveness can begin. And I think one of the things, or one of the reasons, and I'm going to look at my notes here as well. One of the things, and you spoke about the bitterness, is that I know that, we tend to sometimes hold on to things and we don't want to let things go. Like, let go of feelings of resentment, let go of feelings of anger or hurt. And sometimes it's also because we've become so accustomed and comfortable, even though it's not comfortable, but we've become so comfortable with sitting and living from these places of hurt that to even suggest another way of living or relating in the world is completely scary. It's like the scary to not be able to kind of wallow in your pity and victimhood, and there's I love that the chapter is called The Joy of Reconciliation, because there's this so there's these cards that I sometimes read and really enjoy reading, and one of the cards is the reconciliation card. And the reconciliation card has come up really often in a number of readings that I've done for myself and for other people. And so I'm just going to read it. It's not very long. What it says about reconciliation.
Okay.
It says, There's a difference between reconciling and continuing a relationship with one whose energy is unforgiving. Reconciliation takes energy and willingness on both sides. Take time to heal. Forgive yourself. The belief that one person has to be right and the other person has to be wrong can be a barrier to reconciliation, but it is a false belief. Reconciliation is actually about finding a meeting place, somewhere where both people can be heard with fairness and understanding can be found. Honesty is necessary to the process. Forgiveness may be down the track. When we have fought with someone and had a long-standing disagreement, it's foolish to expect all of the ill will or hard feelings to dissolve immediately. Both people must give their feelings time to heal and their heart bruises time to fade away. This teaches us that it's important to find a place where we can meet and work together, even if we hold disparate views. And this story shows us, by example, that willingness and a certain lack of ego are necessary to live in harmony with others. So,
willingness and a lack of ego. I love that part. I love that whole part because, okay, just come in with your nose. I don't want to disturb your thought process. Sorry.
No, it's not at all. It's really kind of beautiful because in the chapter when Belle is speaking about forgiveness, she speaks a lot about empathy and having empathy for another person and being able to understand where the other person comes from. And in order for us to be able to do that, there does have to be a dying of the ego, because the ego is the one that kind of prevents us from empathizing with and having compassion for another person, like the false ego. Let me say that rather, So that was just kind of an interesting, oh, yes, part of the chapter.
Yeah. So you know that whole that term forgive and forget?
Yeah.
And how, I mean, a lot of people will say, no, sure, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget. Right? And I mean, that whole willingness and letting go goes back to that. Like, I mean, you that reading just said it will take time. Some wounds are so deep, that they will take time, but eventually you need to, because if you're willing to let it go, then you work on it, right? You don't forget. You don't forget immediately, but eventually you're going to forget. And I love how Belle, somewhere in the chapter, writes about the relationship with the sister, right? Coming, them not having a good childhood relationship, and then her, I think she said she couldn't put a finger on why. And then the sister visiting at some point, and before anything, the sister sitting down with her and saying, please forgive me, I'm so sorry, for all the ill will, right? And how Belle says that just opened her up to so much love, because it's always like baggage, and it goes back to that about family, that sometimes we are there with our family and we love our family, but our relationships are just they're not great, and sometimes we don't know why, and then there's also the issue that some of our parents are just not abana sorry.
Yeah.
Okay? Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like, yeah, our parents just abana sorry, and sometimes it would be nice to just have that sorry, like, yeah, they don't even have to say that they're wrong, but because I think that's the difficult part, but that whole just being the bigger person and just apologizing it opens doors for healing.
It really does. It really does. And I wonder if and I wonder how it's possible, and not just with our parents or with our family members, but with people, with whom we've had interactions who we feel have hurt us. And, we've never had the opportunity to speak about certain things or to engage about certain things or have that conversation or engagement about, forgiveness and reconciliation and what it means. Um, like how do you how does one sit and um, kind of give themselves that apology? Um, and I don't know, maybe before I get all hectic and into that, because I know Belle also comes up with a really interesting example of how she managed to work on, on forgiveness and kind of opening her heart after she'd been harmed. I do want to read something that Dudu has just shared in the comments, and she writes, I thought it was interesting that, and she quotes, women we see as competing with us or treating us with disregard
Yeah.
may be in need of sisterly care and recognition. Um, the roots of this competition are again related to most Black women's feelings that we are invisible. A very interesting perspective, which really does allow me a bit of room to be more compassionate and forgive these mean girls, or those I perceive as such. And then she writes in brackets, judge. And then she says, perhaps they all are fighting just to be seen. We all want to be seen, and I guess express it differently. Reminding me again, we are all wounded.
Yeah.
And that is so amazing and a really beautiful point, I think, of reference as well, because it just goes back to the idea of compassion and being compassionate and understanding that we call for help in different ways. And sometimes those ways are mean girl, quote unquote, mean girl ways.
Well, yeah.
But it doesn't take away from that desire and that need to be seen. And that perhaps if we meet each other with compassion more often, it allows us to the opportunity to feel seen. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Dudu.
Or rather, meet each other with compassion all the time. I think that's what we must try to, because also ego requires that. I mean, what we do is that when you're in a good mood, right? I know this with myself. When I'm in a good mood, it's very easy for me to go out and smile and say, hey, how's it? And, listen and everything, right? But it's very hard to do that when I'm not in a good space. When I'm not in a good space, I just want to walk past everybody, walk into my office, walk into my house, go to bed. It's because I just don't want to be dealing with it. But if you have that idea that you want to be compassionate all the time, no matter what you are going through, because then that will require that even when if you're not in a good space, you put your ego aside, you put it, at the back, and then put the compassion forward, and then right. So if we do that all the time, but it's so I'm thinking, from Suru's comments, I'm just thinking about all the movies and series and all those things where you've seen, and there's like a mean girl or a bully. It's always that they are lacking, in some lacking in love in some aspect of their life or attention. So it is important actually to just pay attention to those things, and just not, because we tend to make things about ourselves. So when somebody's responding some way to you, you make it about you. You're just like, why does this person hate me? Why is this thing so hard on me, right?
Yeah.
And actually, it just not be about you. It might just be that person is just reaching out, trying to reach out, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the.
It's really interesting because I read somewhere as well that 90% of the time, the way that other people respond to you has actually very little to do with you at all. A lot of it has to do with whatever they are dealing with or going through in their own lives. It's their own point of reference. And I really enjoyed how Bell gives the example that came from Thich Nhat Hanh's book about the brother and sister. And, you know, the brother goes into the younger sister's room and wakes her up, and she responds by being quite curt and irritable. And instead of responding by also being kind of defensive or
Yeah.
angry, he remembers that, oh, Ghana, she was coughing last night. Um, so maybe she's feeling tired and irritable and sick, which is why she's short with me. And I love
Yeah.
that example because, again, it goes back to what you were saying about compassion and what we were saying about compassion. It's that, like, um, it's really a question of giving one another the benefit of the doubt,
Yes.
um, and
Yes.
and being like, actually, you know, no, it's not about me. No, you're not angry with me. Maybe you're going through something, and maybe this is an opportunity for me to be a safe space for you, or a space for you,
Yeah.
um, to be able to either share that, or at least not be an overtly oppositional force to whatever you're dealing with while you're going through that.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, just the person that allows them the space to deal with whatever,
Fair,
right? Because sometimes,
exactly.
yeah, they just don't want to share.
And I wonder, because this chapter also brought up a whole lot of, like, I was wondering, like, uh, you know, people who are revolutionaries, or people who are activists in their various spaces, working against injustice, working against, um, you know, those who, or those systems which kind of bully and oppress, you know, vulnerable members of society or vulnerable people. Like, you
Yeah.
wonder, I wonder, um, how they're able to keep and maintain an attitude of love, because surely it's from love that their activism springs, you know? Um, but when you're in a space such as that, you're constantly being met with opposition and, um, yeah, I'm sure even violence, you know, in its various
Uh,
ways. And it's a real, I don't know, like, I wonder how they manage to hate the system, but not necessarily the people who enforce the system. Do you know what I mean?
so I remember reading in one of, I don't remember which book it was, but one of Kumla Chola's books, and she was writing about how, like, how hard she had it at motherhood, right? So she was trying to tackle academia, and she's like in the feminist space, and she was a new mother, and she was just not holding it together. It was just not possible for her, right? And she was just like, and they'd been like my girls. I had this circle that, there would be times where I was just like, I need help, and somebody would be like, just come over, I'll need what, I'll have to, like, just be on my own, and somebody will just be like, bring the child over, so that you can be on your own, so that you can, like, just come back to yourself. And I mean, what Bell goes into, I mean, it's those communities of resistance, that circle, those sisters of the Yam, where you just have a group of people that you can rely on, that you can genuinely rely on, and they can rely, and this is the important part, they can rely on you too, right? To be there, whenever, not, and that's the thing about these things. I don't think they work for just when you are in need. They work as well when you're, like, celebrating, because these people that have these circles come together, celebrate things, celebrate achievements, celebrate whatever is happening. But also when it's hard, because it's all that easier to understand. Also when it's hard, when when the person knows that, oh my God, this Ngozi has been working towards this PhD, and it's been so hard, and So when we celebrate, there's context, right? I don't come out after like 6 months of not talking and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm having such a hard time with this PhD. And I don't even know that you've registered, right? And you're just like, oh, okay, you're doing a PhD, okay, right? So then you're just like filling in the gaps. So you don't know. So like, I mean, it's a constant communication, constant working on each other and working on ourselves with each other type of thing. So, and I can imagine how hard it is to work in those. And some of us just like are like, yeah, we tread lightly, right? In those spaces where there's a lot of backlash, there's a lot of attack, there's a lot, yeah. We really, I know I tend to do that. Because sometimes I just feel like I can't take the, all that's coming. I'd rather just, and I mean, this comes to like just dealing with truth. Sometimes we just aren't able to deal with truth because you know that when it's gonna come, when everything is gonna be on the table and everybody's gonna be looking at it, you're gonna get attacked. You might get attacked, and you don't have the capacity to deal with things like that. So sometimes we don't do it. We just don't do it. And that's a bit problematic because I mean, if a lot of us had the spaces where we can just let go, then we'd be able to deal with more truths and deal with them like, in the truest sense. Yeah.
And I love how the idea of reconciliation, at least, as I read it from sort of this book and this kind of the symbolism of reconciliation, it says it relies upon the kind of agreement of both parties to reconcile. So it's a coming together of two people, two entities, two differing worldviews, and coming to a middle ground and coming to a place of at least understanding before we even can get to forgiveness. And it's just, I don't know, like, and I'm struggling, I think, to articulate some of these things and to find the words, because I think there are a lot of things that I'm still in the process of forgiving myself for, um, including, I mean, it's like a whole range, of things, from certain decisions I've made in my personal life to sort of career decisions to, and I don't know. I don't think it's like, for me, like a process of kind of beating myself up about it. I think it's a more coming to terms with and being responsible for the decisions that I made and being accountable. Because it's like, it's really interesting that when I think, well, for me, the process of dealing with this in myself, there's that one element of like dealing internally, but then there's also the element of extending some of the things that I'm reconciling with myself to some of these relationships with other people, right? Where I felt hurt or I felt wronged, or even when I've been the one in the wrong. And realizing that, as like, part of that process is also demanding accountability, and realizing that demanding accountability is not the same as apportioning blame. And there's such a thin line between the two, I think, like being accountable for one's actions and decisions versus blaming another person for the way things have turned out, or blaming oneself for, decisions that perhaps ended up not the way that we expected. So it's a super, I don't know, like, it's just a super interesting process of bringing all of these parts like together.
Together. I just want to come in on 2 points, right? From what you say. Firstly, about the whole blame Yeah, so I mean, we ascribe blame all the time. It's like the easiest thing to do when you don't want to be dealing with your own problematics, right? And I mean, when you're in the middle of things, you don't really notice. But I remember my mom used to always say to me, when we were, because we had like, I mean, we are like now, like, best friends. But guys, we have like a long history of, turmoil. And she used to say to me, you can't blame me for your life, right? I've done what I needed to do as a parent. And I just was just like, I mean, I didn't say it, but in the back of my head, I remember many, many times where I would make bad decisions, right? And my reasoning would be, if she hadn't done this, if she hadn't said this, then I wouldn't have made that decision, right? And yeah, only now as when I'm older, am I realizing what she meant when she said I can't blame, I can't just be blaming her for my life because I'm living it myself, right? So that those things, and I mean, it also took for me, for us to reconcile. It took a lot for me to set aside what I was feeling and all the anger and all the bitterness, because there was a lot of it. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of feeling unloved. There was a lot of, I'm putting that aside and just being like, okay, cool. How am I contributing to this? What is my role in all of this? And I mean, there were instances, there were things, there were pills that were really hard to swallow when you realize actually that in many of the spheres, you are the one that is wrong. And you're the aggravator, right? You're the one that's just like pushing at this door that she wants to keep closed, and you're just pushing at it.
Hi, sorry, I think we've lost Tumelo. Not sure how come. I'm just gonna try and call her back. If I'm also now freaking out a little bit, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get her back on. Because we were also, just kind of, she was right in the middle of saying some pretty intense and kind of deep things about, relationship with her mom. Yeah, I'm freaking out. I'm gonna try not to. I'm going to try and keep calm. Thanks, Dudu. Dudu saying that she's here. I'm gonna just try her one more time. And also, I think I've been thrown off a bit by the break in connection. Just gonna try contact her a bit because I also don't feel like we can really kind of go on without Tumelo as part of the conversation. So we may need to either reschedule or do a thing where we maybe go over the chapter again. Yeah, it seems like it may be. Yeah, it may be one of those days where we have to kind of cut our session short because Dudu's also saying technology also failed me, guys. My laptop literally just turned off and it takes 10 minutes to restart. So perhaps we cede today to our technological challenges, and then we can still tune in tomorrow because we're at chapter 12 tomorrow. Thanks again for making the time to join in and listen in. Forgive the erraticness of the vibes. And yeah, enjoy chapter 12. We'll meet up again tomorrow. Okay, bye.